Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Front-End Undefined show. Is anyone out there right now? I'll wait around for a little bit to see if someone shows up. And if not, I'm going to drive straight into this week's topic, which is code reviews. We will take a look at some of the codes that people sent in for me to review, and I might be able to do more. So if there is some left over, I will go and try to find some reviews online that I can do that people have asked help with. So we'll see. All right, seems like I'm gonna be on my own this time. So I will try to go ahead as I planned. Speaking to myself mostly. Let's see. So far on all the streams I've done, I really tried to make it interactive, or that was my plan, just to just be try to make it as real time as possible, where I just go online, I read the question, I answer it on the spot. But what I discovered is that when you try to do this, at least for me, it takes quite some effort to just understand the question, and then it just a lot of as I try to make sense of what someone has written and what it means. So, and also the being interactive, like responding to chat questions in real time, is a bit difficult because of the latency, because of the gap between the stream and how it's a few seconds behind real time, and then also the chat is a bit delayed, so it's never real time. So it's tricky trying to have a chat as you would with like a regular chat, because it doesn't work quite the same way. So from this stream onward, I was thinking of making it semi async in a way, where I will have a bit of a script. I will stick to it, and if and every once in a while, I will take some questions if there is any, and if not, I will keep going. So if anyone joins later, I will probably mention that all questions are still welcome, and I will get to them every once in a while rather than in real time, so that it keeps the stream a bit more fluid, I guess. Let me jump right into it. My background with code reviews, I've worked in about 3 companies so far over the last 5, 6 years, during which I was both a reviewer and my code was reviewed. I've mostly reviewed React and JavaScript codes, but in some cases, I've also had to review code that was written in something else that used some different technology, because most often, the front end doesn't stand on its own. It's written against the back end, or you're always interacting with something. So in the case where we were working on projects that required work on both sides, in addition to reviewing the front end code, I also went and looked at some of the back end code, gave some feedback on mostly on, I guess, API designs, or just how the front end and the back end is going to interact. Sometimes on some other things as well, when I could. So in the companies I worked at, they all had very different approaches to code reviews. For example, one of the companies I worked at, they were super strict. They had multiple layers of code reviews actually. So you wrote something, and then there was the first level of code reviewers who would take the first look and catch, I guess, the most obvious mistakes, the simple, I don't know, typos, simple stuff, so that by the time it gets to the second level or the second reviewer, they don't have as much work. They just can look at the bigger thing. So they had multiple layers of reviews. Then they, yeah, to on top of this, they also introduced at some point like a pull request line limit, where each pull request had to be about 100 lines or be split up if it's longer than that. And this was a very controversial move because yeah, I mean, it's really hard to get do big changes with only 100 lines of changes. So it was a bit of a controversial topic at the company at the time. But I have to admit, in hindsight, it was quite effective. There were times maybe we didn't need to be that strict. I think maybe a bit more than 100 lines would have been okay. But yeah, definitely it encourages you to break things down when working on when making changes to code base, which is always a good thing. Yeah, and yeah, of course, with all these rules or like these layers of reviews and then the 100 line limit, the reviews were quite slow. So they actually tried experimenting with various types of um, platforms for like tracking how well the pull requests were going, whether it was slowed down, whether something was getting stuck, whether something was left unreviewed. So at the time, I think they were using something called Pull Panda, which I discovered is shut down last year, I think. Yeah, which is a shame. I'm not sure what they replaced it in favor of, because like at the time, I guess even GitHub's PR pull request functionality was not so powerful. So so there were all these other platforms on the side that added a bit more functionality to GitHub. And I think Pool Panda, it was first acquired by GitHub, and then GitHub integrated some of their features and then shut it down. But there were some other cool stuff which Pool Panda was capable of, which I will try to find here. So in this case, I had to go and look at the Internet Archive because the sites are down. The site is just a simple, just has a simple like Pool Panda is now discontinued or something like this. But if you go back in time, this is what it used to look like back when I was working at the company in 2019. So it worked mostly as a Slack bot, but then also had some other features. Let's see if I can get to those. This one was, I guess, especially interesting. The so-called pull analytics, where you can just see how long things have been stuck in review. Like for example, yeah, this has been sitting for 2 days. You can also sort of have points for like the number of reviews that people have done and how fast they responded to the reviews that they were assigned to. So they had this whole gamification thing going on, and in the end, the guys got super competitive around this. They were like trying to push pull requests faster and faster, which maybe is not the point, because the point is that you're supposed to take a look at the code, see if any something was missed. And when you're trying to do that fast, you can't really do that well. So maybe it's not the best idea to gamify it. I don't know. But yeah, this was one approach. And then the other company I worked at, they had a much more relaxed approach to code reviews. It's partly because this company, they used the SVN rather than GitHub. So it's an SVN. It's quite difficult to branch. It's quite difficult to make branches. Like in Git, you sort of take that for granted. You can just create branches whenever. But with SVN, it's not as simple because it's slower and it's a bit more clunky. Like branches still exist. It's just a bit clunkier. It works a bit. it works a bit differently to Git. But because of that, it was much more tricky to just create branches, do pull requests like this. But they still did code reviews, except they used something different. I'd say a lot of people just use GitHub because they have their repository on GitHub, and I guess maybe even GitLabs if you have your repository over there. But since the guys were using SVN, they had to go with something that supported SVN, and the one they were using was this Crucible, which is from Atlassian, and it supports a whole bunch of other older version control systems. I think Git pretty much has taken over, but still there are certain cases like in this company where people are still using SVN because Git is not so good with very good big repositories where you have a lot of binary assets. There is this Git LFS, which is large file system support, which is or large file storage, which is an extension to Git that is supposed to make it work better with larger files like images, if you have a lot of images in your code base, for example. So Git is also catching up, but even then the guys, they had been using SVN for years, so they didn't want to go through the process of switching. I tried my best to sort of convince them to it, but to no avail, because the whole company, a team of around 100, 200 people, were used to SVN, especially the non-development people, the QAs, the product managers. Like if they want to get something done, everyone knew how it works, so it was really hard to get everyone to switch. So we were stuck with SVN, and as a result, we were stuck with Crucible. And Crucible was a lot less, I would say, powerful or nice to use as GitHub, because GitHub, the experience around pull requests, I would say, is really refined. At least now, having worked with it for some time, I'm quite familiar with it. I can move around much faster with GitHub's pull requests and code reviews, whereas Fisheye was always a bit more clunky. And because of that, because the combination of branching being tricky on SVN, together with the fact that Crucible is also a bit less feature packed than GitHub, we ended up with cases where we had ginormous pull requests where because making branches is hard, you would not make branches. You would make a branch once and then do a lot of stuff on it and then try to merge it back. So when you try to do that, you end up with ginormous pull requests, which are like really hard to review. And then on the other hand, sometimes we ended up in situations where you had, let's say, a master branch, and then you have a stable branch, which is like a temporary version that is eventually will get released. So once you cut the stable branch, you are not allowed to make changes directly to it. So the way these reviews work is that you always have to commit and then you do the request. So how would you do a request without making a commit? Well, you do it with patches, and Crucible has this support for raw file patches. So you can generate a diff, upload the diff here, and then leave comments on the diff, and then you can update the diff. So you have a diff of like an updated diff, which you can leave comments on again. And that got really ugly super fast. So this is why I say that this experience with working around SVN and Crucible wasn't so ideal. Part of it was processes. The other is because it's just works a bit differently, and it's not as well optimized for this kind of workflows as Git plus GitHub, for example. So that's just a little bit of context of what I've done in terms of code reviews and my experience with it. So I will just cover a few tips on code reviews, things that maybe have helped me with code reviews so far. The first thing I always do when I get a pull request is just just go through it and then think to myself, is this readable or is this understandable? And if I feel like something is really hard to understand, that usually shows that something is wrong here. Either something is missing, or the person has committed to an approach which is really difficult to understand. So just seeing, like, going over the code and just noticing when things seem difficult to understand or difficult to read, that's a good point to bring up. It's a good point to chat about with the person, ask them why it's done this way, and then propose ways of doing it better. And I also definitely try to ask a lot of questions in the code reviews. And I find that most of the time when something seems unclear and I ask about it, we find out that something was missed or something was done, there was a mistake. So these two things, just asking whether something is readable and then also asking questions, really goes a lot to, I think, improve the quality of the code reviews. The other thing, of course, is not to make them personal. And it's a habit. I think when you when you do code reviews or when you write code in general, you tend to really identify with your code, with your work. So when you get criticism on it, it's sort of like the person is coming at you rather than your work. And it's a good idea to always remember that your work is not you, and your work is needs criticism to be better. And it's also good to remember this during code reviews, where you go after the code itself rather than the person writing the code. Because it can get really personal sometimes during code reviews, because that's maybe the dark side of code reviews, which is that it is very easy to get into. Yep, back again. So it's very easy to get into opinion wars, where you are just fighting or arguing about code style or about personal preferences, about things that you do which your colleagues would not maybe agree with. So so it can be I think it's quite useless when you have these kind of arguments in pull request, because this is, maybe it's a point to acknowledge that, okay, you ran into this difference in opinion, but this is not the place to solve it. If you want to solve it, you have to have a chat with everyone. So it's a good place to bring it up, or like discover that, okay, we need to maybe set up, maybe we need to agree on something moving forwards, but it's not the place to solve it. And I find, in my experience, a lot of times I find these things being debated on the pull request itself, which is maybe completely irrelevant to the pull request and the feature that it's tied to. So it's not something I recommend. And I have a bit of a strong opinion on that, which is that I think that all formatting, code style stuff should not be done in code reviews. I feel like everything should be set up beforehand through some tool, like, for example, Prettier or eslint. So once you set these up, then you can sort of, for the most part, forget about formatting, because once you set it up, the Prettier, for example, will automatically format your codes how you set it up, so you don't have to worry about formatting at all. If you have the proper plugin set up for your editor, it will automatically apply the stuff that you have defined in Prettier, so that your code is always up to the code style that you set up with. And even then, once you do this, even if you don't agree with the code style or the formatting that someone has written, you don't have to think about it, because, or rather, if you don't agree with the code style and you would rather do it some other way, you can still do it your way and just hit one button and it will be converted to whatever format that is set up in Prettier. The other option is, of course, eslint. ESLint on its own will solve the problem, but I think it's always better to go a step further and automate it. so that it runs automatically rather than you having to do it manually, because if it has to be done manually, it will be forgotten. And every single time, despite everyone's best intentions, if you're going to do something manually, you are very likely to forget it. So if you are using just the eslint, it's always better to combine it with something like Husky to oh, it's now showing me actual Huskies staged. So I think it's now called linked stage, probably. I'm not sure. Yep, I think it's linked staged, where you can just set up pre-commit hooks. Well, it's Husky plus lint staged. Lint stage is the actual thing that lints the staged files rather than the entire repository, so that it's faster. And Husky, I think you have to look for it with pre-commit like this. Yeah. Yep, so with Husky, you can set up a pre-commit hooks where every time you commit to the repository, it will run some code or run some workflow, and you can do whatever you want. And in this case, you would combine this together with lint stage, or just even, I think Husky has its own support for linting out of the box. Not linting, but at least triggering lints out of the box. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't set it from scratch yet. I've always worked on projects where it was already set up, so not entirely sure. But in general, you can probably set these two up to run every time you commit. So what I would recommend, yes, is to automate the entire code styling, code formatting side of things, so that you don't have to make it a debate every time, and so that it's done. And the strong opinion I have is that if you can't automate it, then forget about it, because even if you were manually trying to enforce code style or formatting, I think it's often like you will not be around all the time to enforce this, and it's easy. And of course, even for you, it's easy to miss something when it comes by you. So you can do it manually, but you will never fully cover the entire code base. Something will always get through. So I would say I personally try to automate it as much as I can. If I for most possible type of code style things, you can always find some kind of eslint plugin that does what you want. Like for example, recently it's something that bugs me. It's maybe not so relevant anymore, but Lodash, if you import Lodash, the entire module, if you import it like this, you bring in the entire Lodash library, and this is like Lodash is around is quite big, relatively big. Let's see, I think it was around 40 or 30. Yeah, so it's about 25, and you don't need this. You would just, most of the time you want a specific function from Lodash, so the recommended approach is to import it like this, so that you only bring in that function and not all of the Lodash functions. But now Lodash also supports tree shaking. This is back in the day when tree shaking support in Webpack was not so mature. So this was maybe the only way to do it. But now pretty much all the libraries, most of them support tree shaking out of the box. So now even doing this is will still results in only map being imported from Lodash from Lodash rather than entire all of Lodash. So but still, it's always better to import, I think, on a module basis rather than having to figure out whether the library actually does it. So whenever possible, I lean towards this approach still, and I wanted to enforce it because I was working on a code base where not everyone in that code base were front-end developers. It's a bit strange, but sometimes there was another mostly back-end developer who tried to contribute to the React code base, and he has no idea, and sometimes he just goes and does stuff like, yeah, import underscore from Lodash and then do underscore dot map. I think this was a fairly common thing to do back in the day when you didn't really understand bundle sizes, or when you are just not aware of how all this tree shaking and stuff works. So I wanted to kind of stop this from happening. So what I did is I actually added eslint plugin for it. So it's yeah, it's, did I search for it already? Plugin. Yeah, there we go. So this Lodash eslint plugin has a whole bunch of stuff for configuring how Lodash is supposed to be used. So you can set it up. In my case, I set it up to support only this version, or and mark and flag all of the other usages of Lodash as a warning. So, so whatever kind of code style thing you want, I would imagine that a lot of ESLint plugins exist to even do something as, you know, like very niche, something as specific as this. And of course, not if one doesn't exist, you can make one yourself. That's a interesting thing to do as well, because then you learn all about how these linters work and how JavaScript or the language is treated, how these compilers and stuff handle it. So it's an interesting thing to do. You like to write your own ESLint plugin. I went very close. That's why I have some experience of it, but I never went through it actually building it. So yeah, what I'm saying is, back to the original point, automate it, and if not, then I would say let it go. Automate it, try to adopt an existing plugin to automate the code style. If not, then just let it go. All right, so I guess that's all the pointers I have for now. To sum up, I will put these back on here. So it's yeah, it's just, first is just on asking whether it's understandable, is it readable. The second is to ask a lot of questions. Third is don't make it personal. And fourth is automate all formatting, code styling. Either use existing plugins or write your own. And yeah, I want to forget about it. A bit of a strong, this part is a bit strong, but I think it's the time you save on these, you know, opinion wars is much, it's much better to just forget about these things that you can't enforce, I think, because in the end of the day, it's formatting, unless it's something in the heat of the moment. Sometimes formatting can feel super important, and it definitely is, but sometimes it's impossible to enforce, and I don't think it's practical to like go against the flow and try to do it. Okay, with these tips out of the way, let's jump straight into the reviews. I got a couple of things that I've received which people asked me to take a look at. So I will start taking a look at them right now. So one of them is this. He mentioned that this is the first medium-sized project that he's worked with. It's the first time he worked with Zustand, Tailwind, Shadsunai. I have no idea how that's pronounced, and I also don't have no idea what it is. I think it was some kind of icon library. Or no, it's a component library, yeah. You can copy and paste into apps, accessible, customizable, open source. Right, and React hook forms. So yeah, it seems like it was quite a lot of experimenting with new libraries, build new tools, and so on. So it's it's not the best position to be in, if I'm honest, because every time I find the first time you use a library or framework or whatever, it's always kind of bad. It goes quite poorly because you are still learning. You still don't know how it works and how things are supposed to look like. So I always find that the second time is usually the best or better. I mean, it gets better the more you work with it, but the first time is usually a big mess because you just don't know what you're working with yet and you're still learning it. And then as you go, it starts to click in your mind and you're like, okay, now if I do it this way, it's better. So the first time usually quite rough. All right, let's start diving into this. I wanted to actually leave the comments on GitHub itself, but the shitty thing about GitHub, at least about doing code reviews on GitHub, is that unless if you want to leave a review for someone like I want to do right now, it's really difficult. You can't really do it. You can't, like, normally you would make pull requests, but now since there is no branches, you can't really make a pull request to leave the comments on the pull request. So I played around with the idea of forking this into my own repo and into myself, and then messing around with it so that I can leave a proper review. I might still do that. I guess for now I will just take it easy, and I will keep things simple and try to just take a look at it on my own without using the code review functionality on GitHub. So I will actually clone this and take a look at it in an editor, because GitHub is not quite good for like reading code like this in the browser. So it's much easier, I find, to just start check it out and then poke around with it in editor. So let me do just that. So I'm going to fire up my editor. Right. Since this is not the machine I use every day, my editor is not entirely set up for this. I just have VS Code installed. So it will be, I will create a new folder as well. Right, and now I will open this folder, and let me actually switch over so that you can see this instead of the browser. I've never actually tried this as well, so I'm not sure how well desktop capture works with OBS and all of this, because I noticed the last time I tried this, it had it caused the CPU usage to spike. So the I hope it doesn't cause the whole thing to crumble. Yeah, okay. I'm now in a folder called very descriptively called temp. Do I trust the author entirely? Maybe not, but I will hit this button anyway. I will clone it, change into it. Yeah. All right, so first let me start with this, and I will also start a split editor so that I can leave the notes for, put the name of the repo here so that I don't mix it up. Oops. Notes for this, and here we go. And the first thing I look at it is this is a lot of dependencies, a lot. So it's a bit unusual, really, to see all of these in action. A lot of it I don't actually recognize. Radix UI I am aware, so I guess, yeah, the thing with Radix UI is that they keep all of their components separate, so you end up with a lot of packages in the end, which is, I think, better than having one monolithic package with a lot of stuff. It's much better to have all these all these individual packages, but this makes me think whether it is actually being used. So I will see. This one is being used. I am not sure whether there is any way of just, if there is any tool that exists out there to like scan like and do this thing for me automatically. I feel like this sounds like a GitHub plugin, but I will not extension, so I will not really look into that now. So this is the class names. No idea what a CMDK is. What is it? Past unstyled command menu. All right. All right, I see. So you hit Command K and it will open this search context. Interesting that someone made a component out of this. Haven't built something yet that uses something like this, so yeah. Sod for validating the forms. I don't know what this is either, but this version number is quite low, which makes me think that this one is not even a popular one, but we'll see. Icon library. Okay. What is Lucite? Open source icon library that provides 1000. Okay. I really sometimes think about how people manage to find all of these lesser known libraries, because it's interesting how you end up with, but it's not so bad, I feel. Yeah, it's about 7K. So at least some people use it, but personally it's the first time that I'm hearing of it. I usually go with what do I usually use? It's I recently discovered tabular icons, so that's what I would go with for icons. I so far it hasn't caused me any problems. It's basically the same. It's a whole bunch of SVGs, which they also export as React components, so you don't have to deal directly with SVGs. So it's very comprehensive. I think it has a lot of icons, so this is what I would go with instead. But honestly, if they package it well, there's no problem with this. It is a bit suspect that they haven't used version 1 yet. And let's see. Do they do the releases? Okay. Then new releases. Where are the milestones? Do they actually ever plan to reach version 1? So the milestones are always hidden and I forget where they are. So here, no. Do they even have milestones? It's 377 tags, releases. All right, seems like they don't keep any milestones. Maybe they don't even have, seems like semantic versioning. Is it actually semantic versioning? We don't know. All right, that's enough of this. React app rewired start. Why? So this was, yeah, this is, I guess, you use if you want to change the defaults of the create React app. Let's see what this is about. Yep, it's to override the defaults of create React app, which makes me wonder what he's trying to overwrite. Is it, maybe you need to override it in order to use tailwind? I'm not sure. Dev dependencies, yeah. All right. So let me try to scan. No, I want to close this. I keep shuffling the windows around because the camera is in the way and I can't really see parts of the window when I have it like this. So I'm moving it up and down because of that. I would try to move it to a place where I can keep it in one place so that I don't keep shuffling it around. All right, so let's dive into this. I'll look at index. pretty standard index, app, use dummy user data, okay. Dummy data generator. Data chats.app, okay. A whole bunch of JSONs containing various mock data. Use effects. Yeah, one thing I've realized actually, in all the time that I worked on React, the easiest way to say how tricky or how complex the code base has gotten is just searching for the number of use effects. And here it's not so much, given that we have and you can immediately find the most complicated components by just looking at the place that has the most use effects. And I feel like I found it manually anyway in this dummy data generator. And in this, I guess this is the one with the most. Everything else has at around 1, which is actually quite okay. And all of them seem to are used to do like something initially rather than run over and over again. Well, this one is, and the other one is as well, but you don't have use effects that build on top of use effects. And that is, I think, the first code smell I get when you try to deal with a React code base. Why is this complaining? Yeah, it's because I don't have this installed, but it should. It's interesting that it's complaining that React is not installed when if it's added. I guess maybe the types for React are not installed. Here's JSON. Interesting, yeah. So I guess the types, it's also installed, but it's not running. Maybe this installation is missing the type extensions for TypeScript. I'm not exactly sure, but this is very annoying. You know what? I will actually try to install the dependencies. Is this npm or a yarn project? It's a yarn project. I don't think I also have npm on this machine, to be honest. So I will maybe skip that step. Maybe I will get into it a bit later. So let me read through this. You have use dummy data, which is in dummy data generator. And it's starting to get a bit dark, so I will pop over and switch on the lights. Okay. Right. So you have all these use effects. Oh, you have all these use effects because you have a whole bunch of things in one file, and that is exported together. I would maybe split this, put all of these into different files and export them from a single endpoint. So you would split dummy data generator into several files and export from an index.ts. If he was here, I could ask some more questions, but since he's not, I have to leave it at this. Feel free to reach out to me later if this is not clear. But you can put all of these into different files and then import them into one file and export them from that file. So actually, let me try to do it here. So I would do index.ts. I would do imports. Like I will not move it around. I just want to show you how this could work. So you would have this import. It's used dummy equipment data. Okay. Right, and then you would go export use dummy equipment data, and now you can just in a different file you can just do import import use dummy equipment data from, and instead of importing it from the file, you can just import it from hooks, right? And it's much nicer when you split it up and then export it from a single endpoint if you want to, or just import it directly from hook / whatever. It's up to you. So let me look at these use chat store, use user store. So these, I guess, are substance stores, which are here, which are also in the hooks folder for some reason. Historically, all of the state management stuff tends to, it's better if you put them in a different folder at least. So in this case, you can put the, oh right, what am I doing? The window was misaligned. So you can put the stores in a separate folder. And also, yeah, and put each of the stores in different files. All right. Yeah, in general, so it seems like he tries to put a lot of stuff in a single file rather than putting them in different files. And I would definitely urge towards having more files than less, because having more files is actually it's much better for version control. So when you have several files, if many people are working on it, then you could both work on different files without conflicting with each other, and that's much more convenient when you're using with version control and you have a project that you're sharing and working on with several people at once. So I'll put that as a note here. Having several files makes it easier for multiple people to work on. Right. Okay. So let's me continue reading this. What is this doing here? As far as I know, this is an increment operator. All right, so he's incrementing this sale ID directly. So I imagine last sale ID is a number. Yeah, these are numeric IDs. Numeric IDs are generally discouraged, or rather sequential IDs. The reason is I'm struggling to think of remember the reason why, because usually I would go with a UUID. So a UUID is the unique. What I don't know what the two U's are there for, but yes, a universally unique identifier. So this is usually what is used for IDs rather than numerical IDs. There is a reason why numerical IDs are discouraged. I'm struggling to remember the reason, but I will put that as a pointer here. Consider using UUIDs for the IDs instead of numerical ones. Numerical IDs. One benefit that I do remember is that when you have numerical IDs, you always have to be careful with how the IDs are being generated. You can't just generate them wherever. And you have to always coordinate. You have to generate in a single place and then reuse the IDs everywhere else. Whereas with UUIDs, you can generate them whenever and it will be unique. You don't have to worry about it colliding or conflicting with any of the existing IDs. So because of that, UUIDs are kind of better. One reason is to avoid conflicting IDs and to make ID generation simpler, right? Yeah. So looking at the store, so I haven't worked with Sustand. I worked a lot with Redux, and I worked a lot with all the things that are around Redux. So stuff like I worked with Redux Saga, even more so with Redux Tunk, but that was quite some time ago. But yeah, I am in the process of actually moving one of the code bases to Redux Toolkit from plain Redux. So Redux Toolkit is also something I've only read about so far, but not actually used, because most of the code bases I work with, they are old. They have been running for some time before Redux Toolkit and all this was around. So I didn't get the chance to work with these so much yet. But I have skimmed the documentation of Sustand. I've skimmed the documentation of Redux Toolkit. I have some idea of what they do. So I also see that this is being used to ban a TS. Okay, so what happens if I get rid of it then? Is it just to allow comments inside of TypeScript code? Because in that case, I can't, in the sea of reds that I have because of the missing TypeScript types, it's difficult to see where what was originally used to which error was originally dodged. In general, I would not recommend doing eslint disables on entire files. At most, I think it's worth doing for a single line or at a per line instance. So let's see if this is ignored anywhere else. So just in two places. I see. So it's to prevent TypeScript ignores. I see. Right. So in this case, this is of course a hack. Like you should not try to like ignore have breaking types. So there's a reason why this type is broken, and it's always better to mend it than to put a hack to ignore it. So this is, you know, like this is something that should be mended. So I think it's multiple things here. Avoid using eslint disable on entire files or at all. Try to always try to fix it. Always try to fix the underlying issue. And yeah, if it is absolutely necessary, use eslint disable on an individual line basis. So it will be eslint ignore next line. I believe it's written like this. No, eslint disable line. Yeah, that's what it is. Eslint disable line, followed by eslint enable line. Let's actually try that out. I've forgotten how the individual line markers are. Do it. Oh god. Another fun thing I'm doing is that this stream I'm running on a Linux machine. On a day-to-day basis I use a Mac, so trying to switch between the two command types is tricky. So eslint disable line and Was it? I think that's not it. So I have to look up what it is. Was it disable next line? It's disable next line, yeah. Disable next line. You have to follow it. No, you don't. Once you do this, you don't have to re-enable it actually. Then you have to just do this. It's still not disabling. Why? Must it be a comment that's written like this? Also no. Interesting. Is it still... Yeah. Disable next line. Well, it's strange that it's not working. Huh. And now it starts to bug me. Why is this not disabling the next line? Is it actually being enforced with... Yeah, right. This is not being enforced with eslint. It's being enforced with TypeScript. So you have to also have the ts ignore that was here, because yeah, that was what originally caused the error. Ts ignore. Yeah, you do a ts ignore and then you do a disable next line to ignore the ts. Just, yeah, this should be used as a last resort. I think whenever possible you should try to mend the underlying type error. So let me see if I can actually mend this underlying type error. Like, TypeScript is not my strength. I'll be open with that. Argument of type currency display. It's not assignable to parameter of type number format options. Oh, right. So it's an issue with the built-in types. Number format options. What is number format options then? What is the function here? It's no format, the formats, parts, that range. This is not the interface that I should be looking at. Oh well, I will not dive into this because I feel like I will probably spend the entire rest of the stream looking into this, so I don't think that's worth it. But yeah, in general, avoid eslint disables whenever possible, at all, completely, and if absolutely desperately required, which in this case it might be because it's an issue with the built-in types, which are usually quite difficult to tackle. Really, it's annoying. I can openly say that I'm not a fan or user of TypeScript. Like, I just I work with it a lot, and every time it just no one has managed to use it properly. Either you run into cases like this where your types are incomplete and you always have something that was not checked. So it's yeah, different topic about whether TypeScript is worth it or not, which I'm not going to go into because this is a religious debate that I don't want to contribute to, which we can maybe discuss in another stream. But yeah, sometimes unfortunately you need this kind of tomfoolery with ignores. Right, so let's look at actually how a piece of UI is put together. So I will look at a page. So this is React router. This router provider, router. Why? So this is a constant. Right, this is good. This is a good thing that you have all of the things in a constant. The formatting of the constant is a bit strange, and also yeah, this should probably be an enum that is split into two. So this is all right, I guess, but I guess this is all right. Maybe this doesn't have to be an enum, but an enum is another option for something like this. But you would need to use an enum and then a object to have the values from that enum. might be good in some cases. In this case, maybe doesn't make sense. So let me look at one of these pages and try to figure out what it does. So let's look at something like the main page, because login is login. Right, so you have a whole bunch of tailwind, something in Russian or Ukrainian or Belarusian or some or what was the other one? I forget where Cyrillic comes from. Which, yeah, something in Cyrillic which I can't really read. Yeah, this gives me some flashbacks to the previous company I worked at, where the code base also had things in Russian which I can't understand. So Google Translate was a big help to me when I was working there. It still would be of use to me now. It's a personal preference thing, but I think whenever possible, it's better to maybe have the code base in English so that other people can understand it. And you can always just use some kind of small translation internationalization library, so that you put a bunch of strings here and then have the translations elsewhere, which is maybe better. Perhaps don't have Cyrillic in code base. Use Latin characters together with I18N. Well, I18N translation with internationalization library, and store the non-Latin text as translation strings. Right? Makes it much easier for a non Russian speaking, if this is even Russian, I'm not sure. Russian slash, well, I will assume it's Russian. I hope, I'm sorry if it's not, for a non-Russian speaking person to understand. Right. And definitely good in the future. Usually more future-proof, since you don't know the developers who would work on the project in the future. Right, I'm looking at this. There is some numbers in the string itself. This is a currency indicator. So I see that he hasn't actually got around to the point of formatting these with like having actual values instead of these mock values. So in that case, internationalization library would also be useful, because they have utilities for doing this kind of stuff, for formatting currency, for formatting percentages, for formatting numbers. So international, it's also good for also an I18 lib will also help with number formatting. Oh God. With number formatting, number and currency formatting. I think a lot of this is now actually built into the web. I'm not sure whether the Intel, like the web itself, has native support for currency. So there's number formats. I think that's what you need basically. This number formats, then you can print various things in different number formats, and you can have currency, and then you can also have, I think, plain types of numbers. Where is it? Formats. I want to look at what styles it can be. I've personally never had to use this yet. I just know that it exists because most of the time what I find is all of the companies that I work for, they have code bases that were around before this API reached adoption. So they have already have their own system for doing number currency formatting, and so it's a big effort to move away from it, and people tend to lose trust. Like when you're using something like this, you have no idea how reliable it is, and there are of course browser quirks and stuff. So it's really hard to convince people to use a library format like this, because if they have their own thing, they go with that. But yeah, it exists. It's also worth knowing and looking into, so I'll copy it. I also see that someone has joined me. Hello. Let me know if you're listening in, or if there's any questions and anything you would like to ask. Let me know. Right. All right. Hi, Nick. Good to have you. I've been talking to myself for quite some time now. I think the stream's been going for about an hour. So right now I'm just reviewing some of the code reviews that some of the repos that I got. So feel free to jump in if anything seems unclear, if you would like me to clarify some of the things that I'm talking about. And yeah, so I will continue with this. Or an i18 lib is not might not even be required. Look into. All right. So I just got home. I wanted to watch this one, but I just made a React app for my university, but I did not submit it for review. Well, you can still send it in. Just send me the link if you have it on GitHub. Just make it, if you're okay with that. Just send in the link and I can take a look. It doesn't matter if it's like not finished or anything. Code is never finished, right? So I can give you some rough hints about where you're going if you have it already online, but completely up to you, no pressure. Because yeah, I find that people really tend to be secretive with codes, because even one of the repos I got is private, and he wanted to make it public just before the stream and make it private after. Well, I understand if it's some kind of company code base or whatever, but if it's your own projects, I think for the most part it should probably be open. But yeah, I say that, and my code bases, not all my code bases are public as well, so it's a bit of a hypocritical thing to say. Oh well. So let's keep looking into this. I was looking at, where was I? I was looking at, you know what, I think the most useful thing I can do with this right now is just is actually to run it. It's gonna be a bit tricky because I didn't set this up. I don't even think I have npm installed on this machine, so I will try to get this set up real quick. If I manage to, it will be fine. Why? All right, here. Does this give me? Oh yeah, because it needs to be installed separately as well. It would be fun if I install it like this and then I break my system. I think we haven't got to a point where Linux is built on top of like Linux is, at least on Raspberry Pi, this was the issue because there was a system version of Python, and if you ever try to do anything with Python, you will break the system. I don't think Linux has come to a point where it's starting to use node scripts within it. So hopefully this will not bork my environment. Let's see. Yeah, I work mostly on a Mac, not on Linux. So I am running a few of my own servers which are running on Linux. So I'm a bit familiar, but it's not something I work with on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, probably would have been good on my part to have this set up before the stream. But anyways, while that installs, I will try to continue looking at this. Because honestly, you learn a lot more about a code base by watching how it runs rather than just reading how it goes. So let's try to dive into a different page. This is really annoying, my issue with this screen. We'll move this away. Right. Overview chart. Where did I come to overview chart from? That doesn't matter. Main has a whole bunch of tailwind stuff. Tailwind has, there is a cards. These are cards. Cards have content. Let's take a look at the cards. Cards, yeah, still the same recommendation of like splitting the things into different files. All of these should probably be different files. It's generally a good idea to enforce the approach of having one component per file. It's a bit annoying, but it leads to a much better code base in general. So even if you have like simpler small components like this, I think it's still better to split them up and put them into different components. So I will put this here as well. Split. Try to have only one component per file. Switch to leads to a more organized code base, even though it can be annoying to keep creating new files. And of course, the same thing I mentioned before about having multiple people working on the same code base, having several files make it a lot easier. Otherwise, you keep running into each other, you keep having conflicts. It's yeah, not ideal. So what I see here is that the types are not being properly set. All right, now npm, are you around? All right, there we go. I'm back. One of these days I will get the dummy battery for my camera and it will not run out. But until then, it has to be like this, where I just go dark every hour or so when the battery goes dead. Oh well. So back to this. So I finally have npm installed. So I will install yarn and get this project running locally. So like this. Oh, great. Oh, right. So like this. Right, now yarn, install this thing for me. Maybe actually I'm getting all these red lines because I don't have npm set up and VS Code is failing to find the proper packages. We will see. So what I notice is that these components are not typed. So if you are gonna use TypeScript, you should probably, this is one of the things you should definitely type, which is the component interfaces. And to do that, in this case, you have to just, I do not want to open it in a different window. So yeah, types are missing for the React components. All right, so you have the card and then you have different portions of the cards. I see. And each portion has different tailwind styling. Huh. Well, I have mixed feelings about tailwind, honestly. I dislike the fact that you end up with code base like this, and then you end up with HTML that is also like this. And I still, maybe this is an old school way of thinking, that I still think that HTML should be semantic, and it should just, it should be semantic, yes, but that HTML should still make sense on its own, even without all this other stuff. So Tailwind kind of messes with this. But I do understand its benefits. I've used it on a small project and I find that it's much faster to work with than definitely than going from scratch. Maybe also than going from a component library or UI library of some sort. So yeah, so this is again opinion stuff, preference stuff, not really worth going into. So let's look at a different page. This one has an accordion. The accordion has things within it. Right. So, right. Same observations, I think. Missing types for the React components. Multiple React components in the same file. Probably don't do this, because when you do this, you end up importing the entire library. I think Radix UI encourages you to do this, because Radix UI has a modular library. It's a modular library, so each portion you can import the whole thing. But in general, try to avoid importing wildcards like this, because that causes the entire package to be pulled in, which is not what you want. Most of the time, you can just import something directly like this, and that's good. I think in this case, he probably imported it like this because you wanted forward ref, but then you could just as well do this ref and you have the same effect. It doesn't have to be react.forward ref. So avoids wildcard imports. I'm not sure whether it's even called wildcard imports, but I will call it that anyway. And I'll put an example here. Wow. Sometimes typing it is the easiest. Avoid wildcard imports because it brings in the entire package. Imports only the required members. Example, imports forwards ref from React. Yeah, does he do this quite often? Let's see. Not this one. Yes, he has done that quite a lot of times, mostly from React, other times from Radix UI. I'm not really sure why Radix UI is pushing people to import the wildcard, import the entire package instead of having a default import. I don't know, but yeah, in general, you should avoid it. In React, I mean, in this case, okay, technically you import the wildcard, you will not have any consequences, because if you import part of React, you end up importing most of React anyway, so you won't have that much of a benefit. But if you try to do something like this, import star from Lodash, for example, which is what I was talking a bit earlier in the stream, you end up with JavaScript in your bundle that doesn't need to be there, so it's just not worth doing. Right, so Yarn, you have installed my packages. Let's try to start it. The issue I see is that well, he has a login page. I'll bring this in a different window. Come on. Let me drag a window outside. Good. Where did it go? Oh, it's here. Yes, this is maybe one of the issues that you have. Seems like the project is super heavy. It's taking quite some time to start. And even though this machine that I'm doing this on is not exactly a beast, this shouldn't take this long. That is suspiciously slow to me, given the size of this project. But then again, I look at the size of his number of packages he has, so maybe it makes sense. Oh, there we go. Here are all the type errors which have been ignored. There are all the lint errors that have been involved, that have been ignored. Cannot resolve at utils. Why is it at utils? Is there a utils folder? There is a utils folder. Why is he trying to import it as at utils rather than just importing it from utils? Well, a good thing to set up on all projects is what is it called, relative, or is it called absolute imports? I think it's called absolute imports. I always mix the two up. I think this is JavaScript absolute imports. Yep. So set up absolute imports so that you don't have to do this whole dance with folder levels, and you can just import directly from the top component slash rather than going dot component slash button. So I think he hasn't set this up. You can just find out by searching for the dots, and which there are many. So yeah, there's even several double layers, and then not so much in triple layers. Also maybe shows that the project is not so complicated, that it hasn't gotten to the point of 3 folder levels deep. So try to, it is usually worth it. To set up absolute imports so that you can import components without thinking about folder hierarchy. So example, import button from components button instead of imports button from dot components slash button. Right. So I would maybe even make this like a bit more assertive, like you can do it like this. Right. I don't know what the intention was between setting up this at utils. I don't know if he tried to set up a monorepo in this project and then either stopped or forgot about it. Yeah, Nick, if you're still there, feel free to ask any questions. Feel free to jump in if anything seems unclear, if anything you would like to know more about. Yeah, I am here to answer any questions while I do this review, so feel free. We'll just see if... Yeah, so he has tried to set up some manner of... I think this is sort of like doing the absolute imports, but a bit less. I haven't actually done this with TypeScript. Absolute imports is much easier than trying to set this up manually. So, and I'm pretty sure TypeScript you can just set it up to source, for example, so that you don't have to do it like this. So yeah, slightly broken config with at utils might be easier to set up a single absolute import / base directory roots and import from there. Yep. All right, I'm just observing, not enough experience to contribute. Well, then take it as a learning experience, really. Like I guess a lot of the things that I'm talking about, if you've just started, might be hard to follow. So just feel free to ask me about it, and I will try my best to explain it. And maybe you will catch a thing or two that is new. So yeah. I was running this project. I wish I can make this larger, but I don't have. I have plenty of space on my screen to make this larger, but I have no space on the portion of the window that I'm streaming to make it larger. So I will have to live with it. So I will switch over to OxySR. And let's start diving into this. It said compile with problems, so I will ignore the problems. And I see a white screen. Great. Is it because of all of the problems? That is also not good. If you just run a project and it crashes, that's not a great sign. Means that it's either something has been set up in a person's machine that only works on their machine and it's not reproducible by someone else. Which is not a good position to be in. I believe if I just go and replace all of these .utils with, I guess for the most part, something like this should suffice. It might break some of the paths, so it's not. Yeah, that's still not correct. I think I need 2 of them, maybe. So I will get this, and I will get this. Replace all of it. Still not good. Okay, if that doesn't work, try to, where am I? Oh, it should be. Oh, right, so it should be like this. It's an uppercase U. Great, so I just need to change this now into a single layer uppercase U. And that's also a bit strange why only utils has a uppercase U starting it. Why does utils, why do the util, well, that's not how you say it. Why does the utils folder start with the uppercase letter? Yeah. Probably the answer to this is the fact that he wrote this project on Windows, and Windows is case insensitive, and so if you run most of this code on Windows, they just don't care about the capitalization. It just runs regardless of the capitalization. So probably the case was missed when it was being set up. I will add something like this. Yeah, this camera being in the middle is kind of annoying. So let me see if I can fix this. Where is it? It's in recent sales. Maybe this one needs another. Yeah, that should do it. Yeah, no, it's not still working. Login page. This. Financials page. Yeah, I guess in most cases it had to be a double. This seems like it will take a while I go and mend all of these manually. Okay, how many more should I change? Oh, yay, that's all of it. Nice. So I'll get rid of this. Let's go back, see if the project has finally started. Yeah, it's compiling with problems. That's fine. I think it's a bit tricky because he has built this thing in Russian, which I don't speak, and which I think Mozilla does not have a plugin for a Google Translate, and I don't have Chrome, so I'm gonna hack into it. I will make it display different pages, and let's see some of these pages in action. Router, login page, main page. What's the easiest way? Is there a guard? There's no guard. So maybe there's not even redirection set up for different paths. So I just have to go to a different route and it should load, I think. Let's see. links.main.name. It's login, employees, finances. Let's go to employees, for example. All right. Okay, so the login is set up, so it's showing me a login instead of the page, so that it's guarded. That's probably because this page has some protection that shows, yeah, if current user navigates, login handler, register handler, login page, user store, use navigate, login handler, hash passwords, inform toaster. All right, and then this is layout. All right, so layout has the protection, I think. Yeah, here we go. So I will just change this so that it always returns the layout rather than just show me a different screen. And there we go. I have a different screen. Yay. And it's more stuff that is unfortunately in Russian. And it looks all right to me at a first glance. There is something weird going on with the shadows. I don't know if this is intentional. Well, this is definitely not what's supposed to happen, I think. This might be because this might be a Firefox specific bug. Hard to say, but it is a bit, something is slightly off with this click effect. It's either rendering slowly. I'm not sure whether this comes from a component library or he built it manually, but yeah. Overall, the layout looks really nice, I have to say, in terms of design. I can't specifically understand what's in it. I can just look at the stuff here and it sort of makes sense. Sort of looks all right. So let's, yeah, I'm not sure whether it's because my machine is under load that these things are struggling. Because running the stream and now running all of this code on top is making it quite hard for this poor old machine that I'm running the stream on. But yeah, but overall, yeah, it looks really nice in terms of design. Seems very well laid out. I can give more feedback if I had. Do I actually have Chrome on this machine? I don't think so. Nope, I do not. And yeah, I'm not going to bother installing more stuff. Instead, I'm now curious about how big this application is, because it's suspect to me that it takes this long to build. So I will just try building it and seeing how big it is. Give it a while. It could just be because this machine is old. Like, it was never meant to... It's around 12 years old at this point. It was never meant to be tackling this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's not very happy with all the things that I'm doing to it. But it should, even on a machine this old, it shouldn't take this long, I feel. Let's see what the answer is. So let's see why he went with React app rewired. Yeah, it's because of the custom TypeScript file, TypeScript configuration. I'll just look at some random components while this thing is building. Yeah, so I think, yeah, what he really wanted some feedback on, I guess, is about the usage of Sustand. Unfortunately, I haven't used Sustand, so I can't really give much feedback about it. It is a bit strange why it's being wrapped with DevTools every time, but I think maybe that's how it's supposed to be and persist. So I guess this is all getting persisted to local storage somehow. Local storage. Yeah, failed to compile because of... Yeah, so it's failing to compile because of these errors. So that's weird. Usually I think React app is set to emit even if there are errors. So it's strange that it's doing this. So I can try to fix these. Hope, is it set up with eslint? Okay. Yeah, it seems to be set up with eslint. Does he have a lint command? No, he doesn't. So I will just do npx eslint. I need a config. Where is the config? Well, maybe even just eslint like this should do it. No, eslint config the dot. Because usually eslint is able to fix import order errors. I just hope that the eslint is properly set up, because if not, it will go and break more things. No Jekyll. No, it's empty. So it's something in public. Yeah, there's a 404 page. There are some icons. Yeah, these are the basic CRA icons. Yeah, I think that should have fixed the problems. So let's just run build again. Yeah, so this is just the sample robots.txt text file. It should be updated with whatever. I think there's probably like a plugin for automating the robots.txt generation, but maybe that's overkill. It doesn't need to be done. Ta-da. Yeah, this is really slow. It's quite strange. Maybe it's just sign that I need a newer computer. Routed. Stores. I will try to review this, even though I don't know much about Sustand. I know something about it, so yeah, let's produce register. Oh, there we go. The project built. Nice. How big is this file? ls. Is it like 400 megabytes? 4 megabytes? No, that's the map. So it's about a megabyte, which is not so bad, I think. Yeah, so it's just my slow machine then, I guess. Just to be sure, I will open it in a Explorer, because yeah, so it's 1.1 megabytes. It can be a lot smaller, I feel. I think for application of this size should be around 600, 700. But I think all of these external dependencies is making it bigger. You know what? Let's also do a bundle analysis. Let's see which of the bundles in this app is which of the packages in this app is taking up the most space. Now this I always forget how to do, so I'm gonna look up how to do it. Bundle analyzer, analyzing bundle size. Just do, or you use it with yarn and add it, paste it, and then add this. Run build and run analyze. Yeah, so I already have that. Close others. Don't save. So bundle analyzer is added. Let's get me out of this. Right, package JSON. Add the analyze script. All right, I guess I have to end the stream very in a while, because I think I'm gonna run out of all the batteries I own. So it's been going for a while already. But I will just do maybe this bundle analysis as the last thing, and I will maybe wrap it up for today. So, right. What was I doing? Right. So now I need to do yarn and run analyze with the z. There we go. Now let's see. So this is all of the stuff that is going in there. The total is a megabyte. The largest of which seems to be React, then React Router, Zod. That's quite big. It's bigger than I would expect, really, for Zod. Remix run. Why is remix run in here as well? Interesting. Reduce CSS calc. Okay. And why is this here? Is this something that he added on his own? No. Reduce CSS calc. Let's see where it's coming from. So reduce CSS calc is part of Recharts. I see. Okay. React hook form, shad cn components. Yeah, this is, I guess, it's yeah, but then Recharts is here. So why is reduce CSS calc over here? Maybe some bug with the analyzer. Yeah, well, this is modern front ends. Your actual code is this big, and all of this is the dependencies that you that you have in. I mean, this is the reason why you are able to move so fast, because you just use components and you don't really write all the components by yourself. But this is the cost. You generate these huge. This is not really huge. This is not so bad. It's about a megabyte, so it's sadly the normal. Even though most browsers now, for most users, this will result in some kind of slow loading screen, especially on mobile. So I think the recommended size for JavaScript in 2022 was about 500 megabytes for JavaScript bundle. Forget now. There was something that was written about it, and I can't find that article right now. But if I remember correctly, it was it should be at least usually around 500 kilobytes, and that's the size that will result in like nice loading times for everyone. And yeah, it's a hard target to achieve if you're gonna use all these libraries. D3. What is D3 doing in here? Scale. So D3 is a part of okay, it's not showing it to me like this. Yeah, here we go. It's part of Victory Vendor. What on earth is a Victory Vendor? It's not part of this. So where is Victory Vendor from? Also part of Recharts. Okay, so it seems like the biggest part of this JavaScript bundle is just the charts, the Recharts. And if I'm not mistaken, that I only saw a single chart in there. Yes, and there's only a single chart. So all of this, about 500, 400 kilobytes worth, is coming just because of, I think, a single chart, or maybe a bit more. No, but I see only bar charts. So yeah, a single bar chart, and that's generating this much. So might be worth looking into a library that does only bar charts. So, and that has no other dependencies, because Recharts is a very powerful library. It has all manner of charts, but in this case, it might be overkill. This is like super over optimization stuff. Like, this is not stuff you should be doing, I think, on a regular basis. But just to walk you through it, if I were to find something else that does bar charts in React bar charts, chart.js. You know what? I will not use this. I will use, what was it called? This last site. It was called GitHub JS repo ranking. What was it called? It was called Best of JS. Yeah, that's what it was called. Best of JS. Yeah, so this is an interesting site. Actually, it gives you a whole bunch of like libraries and packages, and it ranks them based on the stars that they have gotten, and it also tries to categorize them based on like what they do. So, for example, in this case, sharding, right? So I just want something that shows a bar chart and is not super powerful. So let's try D3 is also gonna be super heavy. Let's try maybe chart.js. So to find out how heavy chart.js is, I will use Bundlephobia. Bundlephobia was down yesterday, but it seems like it's up today. Chart.js. Oh no. Okay, then chart.js, what is your npm package? Oh, chart.js. No, but that's installation. Yep, chart.js. So you have, this is also quite huge. Let's check, just for comparison, let's check how big Recharts is. React charts, yeah, the React charts is enormous, as I found out. So maybe even chart.js can yield an improvement. E-charts, Recharts, Cube, Rapid charts, Apex charts. Is this sorted by stars? Yep. So this is from the most powerful to the least powerful. Mermaid, E-charts, Cubex, Plotty, Nivo, High charts, Vega, React Viz. React Viz was also popular back in the day. I'm not sure whether it's still a thing anymore. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, so this is actually, yeah, repository is under new management. Please. So it's actually by Uber. And let's see how big React Viz is. And Bundlephobia is having a hard time. Viz. 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 Is it actually called Reviz? Or is it Uber Reviz? React Viz. Right. Not React Visibility Sensor. React Viz. There we go. 300. So it seems like chart.js is the most light option. Definitely significant. This is extraordinarily big. It's, yeah, and a lot of it comes from this Victory vendor, which is also what I saw in our own. It's not shown here, but yeah, it's, where was I? Yeah, so it's most of it comes from Victory vendor. Other part comes from Lodash, and this seems to be all of Lodash as well. It's not even just the portion of Lodash, it's a huge part of it. So yeah, not so nice. So I will add that as maybe the final tip for today. Consider using a lighter charting library apart from Recharts, since you only have a single chart, a single bar chart, and a more specific library might also be sufficient. example chart.js. And yeah. Okay. What are the last things that I can do with this? Error page. Scroll area. I'm just opening components at random just to see what I can come up with. So he's using CLSX, which comes from this. What is this at SH? So, okay, so it's the shad CN icons, I guess, which he's doing some magic to merge with tailwind. So there are also the env. I wonder if we actually, okay. So usually you should not really commit the env into the project because or rather if you're committing the env, you should probably try to use something like, what was it called? Reset, React env. Was it React env? Oh, I forget. There is a tool that helps you manage the environment variables. What was it called? Remembering the names of things is half the battle when it comes to front ends, because everyone and their mother comes up with names that they think is cool, and then you have to remember them. What was it called? Managing end files. Let me go at it like this, perhaps. Yep. I forget what this is called. So yeah, I guess if I ever manage to figure it out, I will write that into the chat or cover it next time. So I guess that's all I could manage for today. It's been nearly 2 hours, so it's longer than I would usually do this because my brain dies around an hour and a half. But this time, because I'm not actually reading questions or trying to understand questions, it's a bit easier. And yeah, mostly been talking to myself, which is maybe also easier. I don't know. So that's it. I will copy all of these notes and put it maybe as a comment to the video, and then also directly into the I will definitely send it to him directly so that he gets a chance to look at it. And yeah, well, Nick, if you're still here, thanks for joining. I hope you picked up a thing or two. Maybe a lot of it was a bit too over your head. But yeah, thanks for joining. And hope to see you next time. And yeah, I am trying to start collecting the questions in advance for the stream. So I actually set up a separate site for this. It's here at show.frontendundefined.com. So if you have any questions, I will create a new post here for the next stream. So if you have any questions, just go there, write about it, and I will cover it in the next stream. And yeah, see you next time, hopefully. Take care.